we got to play
Aldabas, Doors of Cartagena.
Okay, so this game is about all the really cool doors.
Door knockers, actually. It's the door knockers.
And doors. Have you seen all these really cool doors, too?
Well, it is about doors, but Aldabas is supposedly the name of the door knocker.
I understand, but I'm also saying that they've got cool doors, too. All right, but before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the notification bell because board games are amazing, and that's what we do here at Legends of Nirvana.
And talk about doors and knockers.
I'm going to let that one go.
Okay.
All right, Randy, tell us about this particular game.
So this was a 2022 release. It is this is the Kickstarter edition, and the difference between this and the standard is you get wooden coins instead of the cardboard, and you get an expansion built in, and then the box has like custom print on it, which I don't really care about those cosmetic things, but the expansion's nice, and the
Wait, you don't care about cosmetic
I know
things?
Whenever they do Kickstarters and they have upgrades, the thing I care about least is gold foil and emblazoned on the box, or the box having like this kind of shiny. That doesn't.
I'm sorry, honey.
I mean, a lot of times, if I can, I combine this stuff into one box and throw the expansions away. Like for example, when Smash Up came out, they did that whole gold foil on the special editions we got. I threw most of those boxes away because I got the big box to put them all in. So, the box editions don't mean anything to me. I mean, I'd much rather the contents be upgraded.
That makes me think I should take him and like do an art piece with him or something. All right. So anyway, so there's that.
So it has a Board Game Geek rating currently of 7.0, a Board Game Geek rank of 11,962. It's a 1 to 4 player game, 30 to 45 minutes average length. Mm-hmm. Age 13 and up. It does have iconography, but there's nothing content-wise that would make this be 13 and up. It's not that heavy of a game. I would call this probably a light to medium, more on the light side, though. It's designed by Nathaniel Levon and Joshua J. Mills. Art by Josh Capel and Juan David Vargas. Published by Grand Gamers Guild. Now, this version of it, the Kickstarter, had an MSRP originally of $29.99. The retail version, which doesn't have the wooden coin or the expansion, is $29.99. So I would track down the Kickstarter version, $5 difference in price. You get a built-in expansion and wooden coins. It's worth it.
Yeah.
The Kickstarter edition I see on the Grand Gamers Guild's website for sale. And that's the only place I've seen it. They're selling the retail version on Miniature Market for $17.99. Is the best price I've seen. Otherwise, Amazon and the Board Game Geek store have it for $24.99. So it is coming. It just apparently just arrived at Miniature Market. It's considered a new release on their site.
Okay. All right. We picked this up at Gen Con?
Yes, this was actually one of your pickups.
I did, because I thought they looked cool. Let's talk about the quality of components. The wooden coins are cool.
Yeah.
The cards, however, they've got a shiny finish, no linen finish. The thickness is actually okay.
They were actually really tough to shuffle. When they're this solid and you have a stack as big as this, it's hard to shuffle them, especially the first few times you play.
Yeah, but there is a lot of shuffling in this, so I could see where people may want to see.
Yeah, only in the beginning. You don't shuffle during the course of the game.
Well, there's a lot of handling involved.
Well, yeah, you're drawing cards.
Yeah, so, maybe. Consider it. Think of it. All right, so, but overall, it is a card game. It's pretty basic. Mm-hmm. 5.5. And the half is because of the coins.
Yeah, honestly, I don't know. One of the things that irritated me the most is this divider where you place the cards. This is 2 pieces of cardboard that they put two-sided, one for the gameplay and the other side's for scoring, which is fine. But there's no puzzle to it. These two would stay together if you actually made it a puzzle. My first thought was, well, maybe they did it because it was not big enough. If you put the little ends of the puzzle on, that it would fit in the box. But there's still at least another inch that you could place there. and it would have worked fine. I mean, it's really silly that they didn't make this a puzzle so it would stay together. So what happens every time you're fiddling with cards is it gets bumped, and then you have to realign everything. I didn't like that. The score markers are just little bits of cardboard. If you're going to deluxeify it, if they call it that a word again, with wooden coins, why did you not make those?
I will say that the wooden coins are stamped, and not only that though, but the front and the back are different. So that's...
Yeah, I like the coins a lot.
But giving it a score, what would you give it?
I'll struggle reluctantly giving it a 5.5 just because of that cardboard thing. I would have given it probably a 6 otherwise. Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about the theme. So the theme is that you, I guess, are building a neighborhood almost. You're building a tableau of these different doors. Now, the doors have definitely different symbology to them. For example, you have the color, which isn't actually as relevant as is the actual door knocker, which implies, because you have soldiers, fishers, nobles, and clergy and builders behind those doors.
So the history of the Aldabas is apparently the different types of knockers symbolized what type of occupation you had. So they've taken that history and turned that into this game. The door colors, the only significance there is to basically limit your ability to place cards into your tableau. They coincidentally chose the same colors as the Grand Austria Hotel. So it's the same yellow, red, blue color scheme. No relationship to Grand Austria Hotel in this game.
It's honestly something he just picked up. He's like, hey, this is the...
Yeah, it's like, I guess I'm placing doors in that game. They're red, yellow, and blue, and this one as well.
Yeah, and I honestly, what was helpful is so, yes, there's the different door knockers, but really you're looking at this symbol here.
So the Aldabas themselves have different, even within the same suit, are different on the different doors. So they have different fish and lizards and... so there's not one icon that represents the entire suit. So having that in the corner was super helpful.
Well, and the fact is that that's actually a point in theme's favor because you do get to see all these different doors. And each door, they often have different powers or abilities or actions that go along when placing the door. So I thought that was actually really interesting because basically you're knocking and asking for that individual's help to do whatever. Something along those lines. And they also have different strengths and ranks, which contributes to your scoring in the game. Yeah, so I think that's actually very, very interesting with that. So overall, I think this is an okay theme. I think it's cute. I think they did a lot of good work as far as like the door knocker art there. So I was pretty pleased with that. Is it super strong? Well, it's not that heavy of a game, right?
No, it's a very light game.
So with that and the kind of consideration, for theme, I'll give this a 6.5. I really like the fact that they were individual door knock. The knockers were very individualized, and I do like kind of the story behind it. I think that's very representative. So I liked that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. This is definitely not intrinsic to the gameplay. You could have made these just any kind of symbols. The history of the Aldabas being in the book was interesting, so I do think that she gets some credit for that. I do like the art. I like the chests. We'll get into the other side here in a little bit when we talk about rules. I think the art alone is probably enough to merit a 6. With the history, I'll give it a 6.5 as well.
Yeah. All right, so now let's move on to the rulebook. Now, before you get to the rulebook, I'm going to grade our wonderful cheat sheet here.
Yes and no. I'll give it some consideration, but there's some things missing from it. But yeah, it's a pretty good other than that.
The cheat sheet is pretty good. I like the cheat sheet.
I think the iconography is well explained on here. But it doesn't have anything about your turn, what you can do on your turn.
Oh, fair enough.
And that's what I don't know why they didn't make it, extend it a little more. And I mean, again, plenty of room in the box. They could have easily made this a little longer, put on there your turn choices.
Okay.
But apart from that, this is a really good, it's definitely good for iconography.
Yes.
Which is the main thing.
Well, honestly, the gameplay, your turn is...
It's
not
simple.
A lot.
No, but again, if you put this away for a year, get it back off your shelf and try to play it, you have to go back to the rulebook or you're going to forget it.
Well, how big is the rulebook though?
It's only 12 pages. It's not bad. Well, it's box size. There's no cover. It goes straight into, well, I mean, it's partial in the cover in the sense, again, you have the history and then the components on the cover. They do have pictures of the components. Big pet peeve of mine. I'm glad they did that. So then the setup is super simple in this game. It really takes almost no time to set this up. You basically shuffle the deck of cards, deal out 5 into a tableau, and deal everybody's hands. So then it goes into your action choices, which is, there's really only 3 choices to make. And then basically going into how you score points in the game and how the game ends. After that, it goes into the solo mode, which there's actually almost as long as the solo mode rules as there is gameplay for the game. And then just the different ranks and the different types of cards and what they do. So it's pretty simple, straightforward rulebook. There's not a lot that they can do to make it go wrong. They did color code the different sections, which is helpful, but with this book, it's so simple. Probably didn't need it. I would go ahead and give it probably a 9. I mean, it does a great job with the rules and it teaches you super quick.
Well, and again, like you said, this was really good
and
too.
And the cheat sheet is really good for the pieces that it contains.
All right, so now let's talk about the actual gameplay. So obviously, you start out with your vault. Now you're trying to build a tableau of 4 by 3, but your vault counts as the first space. Okay, so just kind of keep that in mind. Now you start out the game with 5 cards, and you're going to decide to put 1 underneath your vault. Now, when you do that, you're literally kind of only actually looking for the influence value up here in that corner, okay? So at the end of the game, whoever has the most influence and the second most influence in certain ones, it triggers a different scoring mechanism, and that's the only time you get points. So you want to pay attention to those for an example. So like if I'm looking at my hand right now, I have a bunch of like low-level blues, 1 builder, and a noble. But whatever I'm hiding from all the other players. So I'm just trying to keep that in mind. Well, and then I'm also looking at the different special abilities that occur. So I'm not a huge attack person, so I'm going to take the attack card, actually, and I'm going to put it underneath there. It gives me 2 water influence as well. So I figure that's fine. So that's what I'm going to put underneath there. Randy's going to do the exact same thing.
I have a bunch of 1s and 1 3. Unfortunately, the 3 actually has a 3 victory points on it. So when I bury it, I'm losing 3 victory points if I do. But the other thing is, when you'll see when we get into gameplay, the actual play of it, you'll get to trigger different actions. These cards don't trigger. So I'm okay giving up 3 victory points to put it under there because it gives me 3 influence on one of the suits. So I'm going to bury it under. Now, from the rest of the cards, you can decide to keep them all, or you can discard cards for a coin each.
Yep. So, okay, I am not going to do that. All right, so then I have a couple of actions when I go to play. So the first thing I could do is I could play a card I already have in my hand. Now, when I go to place a card, I'm going to have to look for a couple of things. Obviously, you have to place to the most left and the most bottom that you can. So if I were to play on this row, I could do this, or I have to go here on that second slot on this row. I could not place...
It has to either be furthest to the left, or if it's starting a new row, it's going to be on the left, but it's got to go above one. It's got to have a foundation.
Yeah. All right. So now this particular card, it lets me draw 2 and pick 1. I will... Yeah. I'll keep this one.
All right. So technically, there are no discards.
So this one actually gets to be put in the box. They get removed from the
game. They're trash.
It's removed from the box.
Because
okay.
One of the end conditions of the game is if the deck runs out.
Okay. All right. So that is one of my actions. I get 1 more. Now, the other action I could do is I could take 2 coins if I want to, or I can decide to pick up a card. Now, if I take one of the first 2, it's free for me to do that. Or if I wanted to spend coins, I could go up further in the track. Now, I don't actually have any coins at this point, so I am not going to do that. So I will just take 2 coins here. Okay, now, Randy's then going to take his turn.
So the coins have multiple purposes. The coins, as you mentioned, can let you buy cards, but there's also ways to vault these coins. And if they're in your vault, you get 2 victory points per coin in your vault. And some of the in-game scoring conditions will either give you bonuses for coins in your vault or in your purse. So having coins is very good in the game. And if, especially if you can vault them. Problem is if they're in your purse, they can be stolen. So there's cards that let you steal from other players. So you've got to be careful with that. But you need them in order to acquire the cards you want. So I am going to first take 2 coins. Taking your selections actually is important in the order you do them, because like in some cases I have a card right here that lets me actually place a coin onto a card to gain influence on the card. So I'm going to play that, and because I played it, I trigger, and I'll take one of my new coins, I'm going to put it on the card. So now what was a 1 strength is now a 2.
Okay. All right. So that's your first action. What are you going to do for your second action?
I took 2 coins.
Oh, you took 2 coins.
And then I triggered that.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go again. Now, here's the thing. So I obviously maybe want to play another card. I do. But I have to be careful because now I have a yellow door. Now, when I go to place next to it, I have to choose another color. Also keep in mind that whatever card you play cannot touch another color. So sometimes placement does matter, like if you're going up, down, just paying attention so it can't go above you. So just be really careful with that. So I am going to actually not play another card. I'm actually going to draw a card. I'm going to spend a coin and I don't have to spend a coin set. All right, I'm going to take this card.
When that happens, all the other ones move down, and we backfill immediately.
Okay. All righty. Then I am going to place this one. All right. So then placing this here, I automatically, now notice that this one's, I'm placing a yellow, but it is directly above. So it's not touching another yellow card. So I'm good there. So this one gives me, I'm very fortunate to get 3 coins.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's my 2 actions.
All right. Well, I am going to play, and I have to play a different color if I'm playing next to my blue. So I'm going to play a card next to my blue, but it has to be a different color. So I'll play this red one with Frankenstein monster hand looking thing on it. And this one actually lets me take one of the cards in my hand and put it in my vault. So just like I played the card at the beginning to gain influence in the suit, I can actually do that again now from my hand. So unfortunately, I know it's only a 1, but I can place another card in there that will give me influence in a suit later. Now, since I played adjacent to an existing card, not only do I trigger this card, but I trigger the one that's next to it as well. So since I triggered that, now I can do this action again, which lets me take a coin and add it to one of my cards. So I'll put a coin on that one. Now that one is also a 2 in that suit. So it helps strengthen your cards when you play.
Okay. All right. So that's my turn now. So I'm going to actually choose to pick up these 2 cards because they're so nice. I like them. All right. And that's my action. Now, do keep in mind that you actually have a hand limit of 7 cards. So do pay attention. So right now I have 6 cards. So I have to be really careful making sure I don't go over, because if I go over, I'm going to end up losing or basically discarding down, by not discarding, but you'll actually end up destroying those cards going down on that track. So then you keep on going. Everyone takes their turn until a couple of things happen. So if you run out of coins, the game ends. If someone fills up their tableau, the game ends. That's the only 2 ones, right?
No, if this deck runs out.
If the deck runs out, game ends. Now, when the game ends, everyone gets to, except for the person who ends the game, gets 1 more turn. And then you go into the scoring phase. So the scoring phase, we're very fortunate, is mostly on the card here. Basically, everyone's going to count their different influence that they have and go from there. So like the first one's soldier, so you all count your soldier influence, figure if that one triggers for you or not, and you keep on going. Now, the,
Yeah, it doesn't have all of the scoring, which is another problem. It doesn't have the scoring bits that are not icon related directly. which is basically one of them is add up all the points in your tableau as far as your influence, and whoever has the most gets bonus points for that, and that's not on the card. So you still need the rule book for scoring, which is why I said these are nice, but they're not perfect as far as cheat sheets go.
Let's talk about positives and negatives. So this is a tableau building game. I don't like the fact that Dad rushed the game there at the end. I needed one more card. I needed one more round. But in the end, I won anyway, so it's fine.
Well, I like the card, the way they play off each other, and there's a lot. Even though it's a very light game, there's strategy in how you arrange your cards because you want to trigger the ones. Obviously, there's ones that don't trigger, like the ones that give you victory points, or the ones that give you a increase in the number of coins that you can bank. Different ones like that just are ongoing effects.
Yeah.
So putting them in a position where you're going to trigger them multiple times, it's not the best move. If you can put them somewhere where they're only going to trigger once, like the last card you play in the upper right corner is only going to trigger by itself once. That's a good time to play something that gives you victory points. So, trying to strategize for those kinds of situations where you're going to minimize the waste as far as your card play. But you also have to keep in mind what you're doing versus what your opponents are doing as far as playing into suits, and how much influence you're putting in there.
Yeah, I do want to call out one thing specifically is the fact that the scoring is so varied. Like blue is about what's in your hand. Soldiers are about how many nobles you have on the board. And then the nobles are about how much coin you have. So the scoring is so varied.
Yeah.
It's a cross. And so you almost do have to pick a strategy kind of at the beginning based on your starting hand.
Yeah.
Like the last game, I was like, it seems like nobles and soldiers work well together. I have a lot of soldiers and nobles. So, and I implemented a little bit of fish, but that's basically my whole tableau.
Whereas I was going for most and everything and failed to get the ones that were actually going to generate points for me. The ones that I got, because I didn't pay attention to what the scoring condition was, I got like the fish, but I had no cards in my hand. I think I had 2 cards left in my hand.
Yeah.
So it didn't score very much for me. Whereas I had banked a ton of coin and I could have got a lot of points off the coin. I didn't get any points because you two had the highest 2.
Right. So, but then Dad had almost no coins in his vault, but had a bunch of coins outside of the vault. So it's just that I thought actually was one of the better parts of this game was the fact that the scoring was so unique.
Mm-hmm.
And, when you go play, it seems pretty straightforward. You have 3 options to choose from: play a card, pick up a card, or get some coins, and then trigger the cards if you play a card. But the scoring strategy was pretty unique. And so I think that gives it a little bit of a different twist than maybe what you see in some other tableau buildings.
Yeah, and what I like is that the expansion, it adds 3 more suits to the game. So it adds a whole bunch more scoring because even within the suits, there's multiple different actions you can take from them. So I think there's like 2 to 3 different actions depending on the suit. So there's a lot of variety in this game. And we haven't played with the expansion yet, but I'm eager to do so because I think it's going to add a lot more fun to the game. Because I found a lot of repetitive actions within the ones that we had, but I still enjoyed them. I used them all.
I was like, I need this action. I need this action.
Yeah, I built it up so I could bank a lot of coin really quick. So I had set it up where I could bank 2 coins at once, and then I had a bunch of cards that banked coins that I lined up to trigger multiple times. So I had to I kept running out of coin. I had to keep getting more coins.
Well, someone kept stealing them from you.
Yeah, that didn't help either, but yeah.
Yeah, so overall, let's talk about an actual score. What are you thinking?
I enjoyed this more than I thought I was going to. I wasn't super excited. It's a small box game. I don't like small box games in general.
But lately
this one felt like a bigger box game. I mean, it's a short game. It's not long, but
sometimes you need short though. Sometimes,
yeah, it's a good filler game, and it's meatier than I expected. It's like kind of like the Red Cathedral. It's more meaty than I expected it to be. This is simpler than Red Cathedral, but I think I like it about in that same realm. I'm probably going to give this a 7.5 because I like the fact that I think there's still a lot more engine building to explore with this, even though it's not really a heavy engine builder. It's got enough where I can play things and trigger them multiple times that it feels like an engine builder.
Well, and I think there's strategies to be had. So, like, obviously, like I said, soldiers and nobles seem to be a strategy. And my guess is that the fishers and clergy are a little bit of a strategy with a little bit of builders. So I would like to see how that fully plays out. So that would be very interesting to see. Plus, I think you're right, though. I think with the expansion, I'm excited to see what that will add. I'm a little bit lower than you. I probably will end up giving this, we'll say a 7. I do think there's a lot of strategy involved, especially with the scoring mechanism. And I think I kind of just lucked upon it as we first played it. But I think I would like to see it with the expansion. And I'm hoping that might give it a little more bump up. But I'm at a 7 right now. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. We had an absolute blast, and hopefully you'll come hang out with us again. We'll catch you guys later.
Bye.